Hello, welcome back to the channel. If you heard about the platform n8n and you would like to use it to automate supply chain workflows, but you don't know how to start, this video is made for you. In this tutorial that I designed for complete beginners, we are going to learn together how to build an AI workflow like this one that collects orders from emails, process it using AI, and then automatically upload the information in a Google Sheet. For that, I will assume that you start from scratch. So I will show you how to create an account on n8n, how to set up the credentials to connect your instance to Gmail, Google Sheets, and then how to create an OpenAI key so you can add agentic part in the different workflows. I will use a very simple exercise using a free API to show you the basics of data processing. And then when you learn the different basics, we can work together on building your first agentic workflow. At the end of this tutorial, you will be able to use any of the 30+ workflows that are shared on my GitHub to automate supply chain operations, but also content creation, improve your productivity, and support your DevOps operations. If you want to learn n8n, this is the right video for you, so get ready. So first, maybe let me show you how your first AI workflow will look like at the end of this video. So this workflow is very simple, but it's a good way to start learning how to use AI on n8n. An equivalent of this workflow is on production for one of our customers. So the idea here is that the customer receives orders by email because some of their suppliers are not directly connected to their systems. And they have admins that are automatically keying the information, the emails in the different systems. Here, what we are going to do is to use AI to read the email, parse the element, and then save it in a Google Sheet. In the actual workflow, we are sending that to a database, but here, for learning purposes, we are going to use Google Sheet. So I will launch so here is an email where you have information in the subject, where you have the PO number, the expected delivery date, and then you have the PO number also in the email body, you have the expected delivery date also, and the different other lines. The idea here is to collect all these informations and put that in this Google Sheet, where you will have the PO number, the SKU ID, the expected delivery date, and the quantity. So I will launch it. So here is n8n. So n8n is a web platform where you can build the workflows like this one, and I will show you how to create your account. But first, let's assume that you know about it, and I will launch the workflow. So here you have two ways to launch your workflows. It can be automatic, or you can trigger them manually. Here, for learning purposes, we are going to trigger them. So what happened is that the email that is received is read by this node. This AI agent parsed the content, then it's formatting the output and pushing the data in this Google Sheet. And what you can see is that all the information that you had in the email is now present in the Google Sheet. So this is the type of automation that you will be able to build and implement for small, medium, and large companies. But for that, you need to set up your instance, put your credentials, and then learn the basics of data processing. This is what we are going to do in the next section. So as I said, n8n is a web platform that you can access via a link. So here is my link. As you could see here, you have these 5 letters that basically are coming from the fact that I am hosting my n8n instance on Hostinger. So I have my own server that I'm using for other purposes, and inside this server you have n8n. This is not what I would advise you to do at the beginning if you are learning n8n. The way I did, and it's still possible now when I learned n8n a year ago, is you go on the n8n platform where they have for free 2 weeks of n8n Cloud. So the difference between what I'm doing and this solution is that instead of having your own server, your instance is inside the servers of n8n. And it's a very practical approach, especially if you don't have basics in DevOps, because n8n is taking care about everything. So you go on n8n.io, you sign in. So here you go on, I already have an account that already finished the free trial. So I will pretend that I'm like you, I have a free trial. Then you put your name, you put a company email, you confirm your email address, and here you put your account name. And it's very important because this account name plus .app.n8n.cloud will be the address, the equivalent of what you have here. Then you confirm that you are not human and you can start your free 14 days trial. So since here I already have used that for my company email, I cannot create any more account. But let's assume that you have finished this part. Normally you will arrive in this page where you will be able to sign in. So then normally you should arrive at a page like this. So here I have a lot of workflows because I've been using it for a while, but you have no workflow. But don't worry, we are going to build 2 together in this video, and then you have 30 plus that you can find on my GitHub. So first we are going to set up everything that we need to be able to interact with the different services that we want. If we go back to the workflow that I will teach you how to build in the next section of the video, what are we doing? So the workflow is triggered by a Gmail node. What does that mean? That means using this node, every time that you receive an email, the workflow is triggered. It looks at the content, and here in this node, what you're going to do is you're going to check the subject of the email, and if it contains inbound order, you are going to continue. You can consider that n8n is a kind of data flow building. So it goes from the left to the right, from the top to the bottom, and all the nodes are basically telling you what you do with the data. So this workflow starts with data received on your email. So every time that you receive an email, the workflow is triggered. You check if the email is the scope, so using this node. If it's in the scope, you use this AI agent node. It's a bit more complex than here, but basically, imagine that you are in ChatGPT. When you interact with ChatGPT, you send a prompt, and this is what we do here. In the prompt, we share the subject of the email and we share the body. And you have what we call a system prompt. It's basically a text that explains to the agent how to behave with the content received. Don't worry, in the second section, we are going to go in details on how to build that. Then what may be a bit worrying for you is you have this JavaScript code node that processes the output. But don't worry for that. I'm not an expert too on JavaScript. I'm using Claude, explaining Claude in details what we want to do. And usually it's really helpful. And this output sends the data to the Google Sheet that I showed you in the initial demonstration. Here, in terms of interaction, your workflow should interact with a Gmail box. It should interact with a Google Sheet and with an OpenAI model. So you need to set up the credentials to connect your workflow to all of these services, and this is the first thing we are going to do. So let's go back to the home, and here you have the section credentials. Here, in this section, you'll have all the credentials to the services that you are using. And what you can see is that I have a lot of credentials. So first, my advice is, if you are starting as a beginner to play with n8n, I would advise you to create a dedicated Gmail account for what we are going to do. So that way you don't interfere in your mailbox, in your calendar, because at the beginning you don't know what to do. And this is exactly what we did here with Logic Green Bot. So you go here on Create Credentials. So first we need the credentials for our Gmail trigger. So we go on Gmail, and then we have this credential that is called Gmail OAuth API. We continue. And then here, what we have, so this is the URL of your instance that you need to copy. And then you need to go on your Gmail account to set up the credentials, and I will show you how to do that. So here we are on this browser. I have the Logic Green Bot account. This is the email that we used for testing our workflow. What we need to do is to open a tab and go on this URL, so console.cloud.google.com. The idea here is to connect to your Google Drive instance and enable the different services to connect and interact with your n8n instance. So you go here on the research, I already did that, but I can do that again for you, and you type Gmail. The first result that you will see is the Gmail API. So this is where you explain how you interact with your Gmail account and who you authorize to interact with it. So here it's already activated, but what you will have if it's not activated yet, especially if you have a new account, you just click on Activate. And then you refresh and you will have this option of managing. You should have also API enabled. So you go on Manage. Then the objective here is to set up the credentials. So you go on the left panel, you click on credentials. What you can see here is that I have a lot of different credentials for the different workflows that I'm building. Here you go on create credentials. If you remember well, n8n is using OAuth identification. OAuth, you will see, is just the window, the panel that will appear when we are going to set up the different credentials. So that's what we are going to do here. Application type, you click and you use web application. Here you can give a name. So I will give a name, tutorial n8n supply science. Then you have authorized redirect URLs. And here, this is basically your instance address that you have copied, like not the instance address, sorry, the link that you copied. And then I create the credentials. So what you're going to have is the client ID and the client secret. So the client ID, you copy and you paste it on your instance. And you did the same for the client secret. And now you should have both. You just click here on sign in with Google, and then everything is going to be set up. And then what you will have as a result is the account that has been connected. But then you need to do the same for Google Sheet. So keep your ID and your secret copied, and you just go on credentials, and then you type Google Sheets. Here you will use the OAuth, not the trigger here, because Google Sheets is not going to be used as a trigger. You continue. Then you can use the same client, the same ID, but what you need to do is to make sure that Sheets, the Google Sheets API, is activated. So here it's enabled on my side. If it's not, you just click it on activate it or enable it. And then you go by here, you put your ID, your secret, you sign in, and you will be set up. So now we are connected to our Gmail and Google Sheet services. So what we need to do is to add an OpenAI API key so we can use OpenAI models in our workflow. And this is what I'm going to share with you. For that, unfortunately, you cannot use your ChatGPT account. You will need to use your credit card to top up some money. Don't worry, it's not going to be more than $2. So for that, you need to go to this link, platform.openai.com, and you need to create an account. So you can go and sign up here. You can create an account with Google. Sorry, it's in French. And then when you have your account, you will arrive in a platform like this one. So this is my OpenAI platform. As you can see, you see my face. And then what you need to do is to generate so first you need to top up some money. So for that, if I remember well, you go on dashboard. So you have the general API keys that you are using. You can give them name. They share with you only one time the secret key. You have the billing here. And this is where in the billing where you can add credit to balance. So unlike the other services where you don't know what you're going to pay in the future, here you just top up. So what I would advise you is to just top up $2. It's way enough. Even $1, it will be way enough for you, especially as a beginner. Then after you have top up, so you can add to credit balance and you can use the payment method. It's quite easy. You go on API keys and then you go on create a new secret key. You give it a name. So I think tutorial key, right? You can select a project. For me, I use the default project. You can restrict it, but if you are a beginner, just don't restrict it, but do not share it with anyone. And even if you share it, it's okay because you only have $1 or $2 inside, and then you create this secret key. You just copy it and don't forget to not lose it, and then it's done. So the tutorial key has, as here I'm using it, I will delete it, revoke, but don't delete it for you because this is what we're going to use for the n8n workflow. And then you go back to your n8n instance. On your n8n instance, you can create credentials, and here you type OpenAI. You continue. You paste the API key. I won't paste it here. Or I can paste it here. It's going to be hidden. And then you don't have to change anything. You just save it. You give it a name. Give it tutorial. And then you can save it. Now you are all set up. So your workflow here, and we will do that together. Don't worry for that in the next section. Your workflow here has all, sorry for the Grammarly, all the credentials needed. So here, the credentials for the OpenAI account. I will show you how to set up that. The credentials for the Gmail, and the credentials for the Google Sheet. So now we are ready to build our final workflow. But first, I want to use a very simple workflow so we can practice together and learn the basics on how to process data with n8n. And for that, I have a very nice example for you that doesn't need any credentials, additional credentials, or any additional subscription, and that you can use to play with n8n and learn about the data processing with n8n. So let's do that. Let me introduce you FruityVice. FruityVice is a powerful web service that provides information, data about fruits. Then you're wondering, what's the point? I'm here to learn workflow automation with supply chain. Don't worry. The interesting thing here is that it's a free service that provides access to data via an API. And for most of the time, when you are going to build workflow automation, you are going to communicate with APIs. So it's a great way for us to basically learn how to extract data from a specific source, process it, and then sending to another source. So it's a good playground, and this is how we are going to use this service. So here we are on your instance with the credential setups ready to build workflows. So you go here and create workflow. So as I explained in the demo of the final workflow that we are going to build, you can trigger a workflow with different approach. So the ones that is used on our order processing automation is a trigger using a Gmail trigger. The idea here is every time that an email is received on your mailbox, this trigger is activated, and it will activate the rest of the workflow. So you have that for Google Sheets triggers, and for that, you go here on plus. This is where you will have all the different nodes. And when it's the first node that you put, n8n automatically proposes you triggers. So you have manual triggers, on app triggers, on schedule, on webhook. So webhook, it's basically a way to transform your workflow into an API where that can be queried. So here's a bit more advanced, maybe you will not care that much. You can create forms. You can execute this workflow, trigger this workflow by other workflows. But here, for the sake of development and learning, we are going to use a manual trigger. So this manual trigger will basically be executed each time we click on this button. Okay, so we have our manual trigger. Then the first thing we need is to extract data from our FruityVice API. So for that, we click on plus here, we have access to nodes, and you type HTTP request. So what is an HTTP request? An HTTP request is the system, is the framework that is used by servers to connect and exchange information between each other. And this is what is used on internet. So every time that you connect on a website, it's an HTTP request that is sent, data is extracted, and then it's displayed on your browser. And for that, we are going to use the FruityVice API. So I type it here, I copy and paste, so it's fruityvice.com/API. And here, when you are connecting to an API, you can do multiple requests. And for that, you need to go into documentation of the API to understand how to formulate a specific request. Here, if you go on the fruityvice.com documentation, you have a specific request where you can ask for all the fruits that are in the database. And this is what we are going to do here. So we have a lot of data, basically. So that's the only thing you need to do here. You have multiple methods of queries. You have a get query and a post query. These are usually most of the methods that you are going to use, especially if you are a beginner. Here we want to get data, so we are going to use a get method. And how to know which method to use? Again, look at the documentation of the API. So we done that. We can click on execute. What happens here? So everything is green, has been activated. Here you have some information about the input and the output. So here we know that we have one item in input. This is just the information that we have triggered the workflow. And then we have 49 items in output. So let me have a look here. So in terms of input, we only have the execute workflow trigger. And then on the output, we have a lot of information. So first, you have multiple formats to look at the information. Here is the JSON formats. So it's basically a way to notate data that is widely used for APIs that are connecting to each other. And this can be considered here as the language that you are going to use to receive and send data between nodes and workflows and services. So the idea here is you have a specific formatting that looks like a dictionary, like multiple Python dictionary if you are familiar with Python. Here, between here like name, ID, it's what we call keys that are linked to data value. So for instance, here the first fruits that we have. So we have 49 fruits. Each element is separated by a comma. So here, this is our first element. In this element, it's related to the first fruit, the persimmon. You have the name, the ID, the family, the order, the genus, the nutrition facts. And what you can see here is that inside nutrition key, you have multiple items. This is why you have an accolade here. And then it's repeating for the other fruits. So this is the JSON format way of looking at the data, but you can also look at the data in the table format. And what you can see here is the same. This is one element with the different items. And what you can see inside the item nutritions, you have multiple items. And this will be part of the exercise, of extracting the data and put that more in a tabular way. And then you have the schema. So the schema is pretty convenient if you want to drag and drop the different fields. And here you have an interesting button that is called pin data. The idea here is that when you are going to develop your workflows, you don't want to retrigger and to recall the API multiple times. Here, Fruityvice API is a free API. Every time that you send a call, it's using the servers. It's probably like a free open source project. You don't want to overload the service. And for instance, in another example, maybe the API that you are calling requires money. For instance, OpenAI API, every time that you send a call, you have to pay. So if you want to avoid to send a call every time and save the data, you just have to click here on pin data. And then every time that you are going to relaunch the workflow for this specific node, there will not be any execution. You will just take the cached data that you have. And what is very interesting is that you can also, for test purposes, for instance, modify this data. So for instance, I don't know, you want to try, let's say that in your workflow, the ID should be an integer, but you don't know what happens if the ID is not an integer. But here you put like a string and you see what will happen. But here I won't do that. So we'll keep, I think it was 1. Okay. No, it was not 1. It was, what was it? 52. Okay. So we save. And now I will retrigger again. And what you can see here, there was no green because the data was cached. So what do we want to do here? First, I want to teach you a node that is called filter. So the idea here, and as you can see, you can consider that as data flowing. So the trigger will launch this HTTP request that will pull data. This data is sent to the node that is on the right, and here's the node filter. And what you want to do is, for instance, let's say that you want only the IDs that are below, I think in my example, I took 30. So what do you do here? You remember you have multiple views. I told you the schema view is quite interesting for drag and drop. So here you have multiple conditions, is equal, and the conditions can depend on the data type. So here we are going to use the ID. So first we drag and drop the ID. And then we can put a condition on the ID. Let's say that you only want the IDs that are below 30. So an ID is an integer number. You want it to be less than 30. And you put the condition 30. You can add conditions. When you add a condition, you can put logic. So for instance, here you can put or. You want to have the ID below 30 and the family, which is a string, equal to Ebenaise. For instance, right here, let's keep it simple, only one condition. I will relaunch. What you could see here is that, again, the HTTP request hasn't been launched, so you don't pay if it's paying, if the API is not free, and you don't overload a service if the API is free. What you could see here in terms of information, just without looking at the node, you had 49 items before, and now you have 12. So this node filtered out all the fruits that have an ID higher than 30. And here you could see that. So you have the table with the different IDs. On the left, you have the IDs that have been kept. And on the right, you have the IDs that have been discarded. So you have 37 IDs that have been discarded. So that's the first node that I wanted to teach you. The second node would be a node that you are going to use a lot. It's called the edit node. And here, let me just check my notes, what I want to do with the edit node. Oh yeah, so here we want to map the data. As I told you, maybe we are not familiar with this format, so we want to create something more digestible, for instance, that you would send to your Google Sheet or to an AI agent. So let's keep the schema vision, which is more practical. And here what we want to do, in the table here, the nutrition facts it's a list inside an element. It's probably not very practical for the usage. Like for instance, if I want to have the fat of the strawberry, I need to go to nutrition and then fat. It's not practical. So we want to transpose all this information with one column per information. Well, we can do that. So we go on nutritious and calories. We drag and drop here. Here, this will be the name of your new field. I put an underscore because I want to do things properly. Then I will do the same for fat with an underscore because I do things properly. I do the same for sugar. I'll do carbohydrate, sugar, carbohydrate, and protein. And here, what I'm going to do is, so let me just put the underscore, and you can follow me in doing that. Shit. Sugar. And then the same for protein. So the idea here, what I want to do is to add this column so that way for one record for one fruit we have the calories, the fat, but everything in one line without this array inside the columns. So here I have created these 5 additional columns, but I want to keep the rest. So I have this option, include other input fields. And here I can use this button that I haven't used in the past. So this button is used to only trigger all the elements, all the events before this node. So this is what we are going to do. And here, that's what we have. So we have our new columns that are added. We can try also maybe to, let me see. We can try also to select the fields that we want to add. So let's say I don't want to have nutritious. It's okay. I can add manually the different columns that I'm interested in. Genus. I re-trigger to see what happens, and yeah, it's exactly what I want. So we have the family, genus, and then all the nutrition facts with 1 column per nutrition fact. Okay, and what we can see here, if I execute again, we have like 12 elements. So we have processed our data. Our data is ready. Let's see what we can do next. Let's imagine a case study now that you want to take all the fruits that you consider to be high fat and you want to send them to your doctor to ask her if you can eat them for your diet. For that, we can use another functionality here that I haven't showed you yet. Is instead of only taking the data that is raw, you can create your own expressions. So for instance here, I'm going to take the fat, right? From the nutrition facts. Okay, here I will call that high fat. It's going to be a Boolean value. That would be true if the fat is above 0.2 grams, I think, or milligrams, and false if not. For that, in the expression, so here, make sure that you are clicking on expression. I will add the condition. And what you can see here is that for the different items, depending on the value, if it's true or false. And for most of them, it's false. So I will relaunch that. And here, you have your Boolean with the high fat. Ah, yeah, but it's 20. Sorry. Should put 0.2. I will relaunch it again. Great. So we have some that are high fat and others that are not. And we can do that, and when we can use this Boolean to filter our content. Or use an if condition. Using the if condition will help you in case you want to do something with both of the conditions. And here, this is what we are going to do. So I go on high fat, and here it's a Boolean, and I will check if it's true or not. Here I have a wrong type. Yes, indeed, we can convert if it's true or not. So here, what happened? I don't know what happened, to be honest. Maybe if I go on edit fields. Yeah, the problem here is that I have put the type as number, which normally should be a Boolean. Let me relaunch it again. Yes, now we don't have the error message. So what was the error message? The error message was saying, you are trying to check if it's true or not, but it's not a Boolean, but you can convert it in case it's needed. Here, I don't want it to convert it. I want to do it in the proper way. So I made sure that in the previous note, the format is correct. And now you have 6 elements that are true and 6 elements that are false, and you can do things with them. For the ones that are false, or for the ones that are true, we are going to write an email to ask our doctor if we can eat them or not. So for that, we are going to use a JavaScript code node. So this is where probably if you're not familiar with coding, you will be a bit worried, but don't worry because you have the support of Claude. So what you can do is here to say, I want to have the list of the fruits that arrive here as a list. Please generate me the JavaScript. And this is what we are going to do here. So here, if you are not familiar with JavaScript code, I don't want you to worry. We have Claude. And to be very frank with you, I am data scientist and I am developing web applications with my brother for Logic Green. And I'm also not very comfortable with JavaScript. But with Claude, life is way easier for us. So what we can do, I took a screenshot of the workflow. And now I will describe what I want. So I will say, please generate me a JavaScript code to generate. Please write me. Okay. To generate a list. So what I want to do is the list of the fruits with their nutrition fat level. So that way I can send that to an AI agent node. Let's see. Show me how the output will look like. Why I add this last sentence? We are not familiar with JavaScript, so we cannot know if its code is good. So I basically ask, write me the code, tell me what would be the output. I use Sonnet 4.5, but we can use... Great! You see, it's exactly what we want. Here, he provides us an alternative if you want to keep all the original input. We don't. Don't take the code that was generated by Claude always for the pure truth. Most of the time it's not working, but I will show you how to debug that. So now we are going to write some JavaScript code, but I don't want you to worry, especially if you're not familiar with software engineering. I'm not familiar with JavaScript too, so that's why I'm using my best friend Claude. So what I do, I paste the screenshot. And I describe what I want. So I want you to write the JavaScript code node to generate a list of the fruits with their nutrition fat. It should look like this with fruit. And we give the example here. Fruit name and nutrition fat 0.2, for instance. Please give me the code. I ask for the code and show me how the results will look like. Boom. Why do we do that? We are not experts in JavaScript, so we will not be able to see if the code is good. So at least if we push Claude to link its code with the expected output, it should be good. Yeah. Okay, so we have two solutions, one concise, one not concise. Okay, we are beginners, so let's use the one that is not concise. We copy it, and then let's go back to the instance. So now we are ready to paste the code that has been generated by Claude. Here we can execute the step, and yeah, this is what we wanted to have. The list of the different items. Here I have added output. So the original code was only results. Like this. I called it results. So the original code that was generated by Claude was this current output. But if you want to be able to use it in the next node, I advise you to use this format. Perfect. So then we can create our first AI agent node. So AI agent, boom. Source for the prompt. So what do you want to give as input to the AI agent? It's not going to be a chat because we're not making a chat. We are providing the list. So we go on schema, and what we send is the output. So that's why, I have created this, I have added this key output, so it's easy to fetch the list. And then, as I explained to you in the demo, we need to set up a system prompt. So for that, we are lazy, right? We don't want to work that much. We are automating tasks. We do what we do. We ask Claude. So this is what we're going to do now. So back to Claude now. What we do is, okay, here is the input of my AI agent node, user prompt. Please write me a concise. Why a concise? Because you don't want to have a large a system prompt because it affects the performance and also it uses tokens. A concise system prompt to generate an email to Dr. GPT asking to an email to Dr. GPT from supply science asking if I can eat these fruits. Yeah, let's keep it brief. And what I'm discovering now is we have also another opportunity here to learn a new thing. So let's imagine that there are too many fruits and you want to reduce that. I will show you how to do that. So back in our instance, we have our user prompt taking only the list of the fruits. Probably we could clean that, but it's going to be for another tutorial where I'm going to introduce to you the different formulas in JavaScript to clean the data. Here, we go on add option, we add a system message, and we paste the content here. Put that as an expression, and we have the look. It's quite concise. So, what I wanted to tell you, what I discovered is, when I had a look at the user prompt, I was considering maybe we have too many fruits, right? So what if we don't want 6 items, but we want less? Between the if node and the code, the JavaScript code node, we can add a limit. Now you have all the basics of basics nodes to process data. So we want to limit that to 3 fruits. Okay. We won't connect that to our AI agent yet. And what we can see is that now we have only 3 fruits. Great. Here, The AI agent node is connected well. Okay, I think it's good. As you could see, it's red. Why? So just a quick tip, if you want to clean your workflow, you can do that. Let's separate that here. Why it's red? Few things. We don't have chat model, and you see it's red, so it's something mandatory. You go on OpenAI chat model. Then the OpenAI account, you select the credentials that we have created together before. You can select the model. And then it's not red anymore. I can re-execute the code. Here, as you can see, it's running. And what do we have in an output? It's our email. Great. What we can do at this stage? First, we want to send that to an email. So we use Gmail. Send an email. Send a message. Here, I will use my bot at gmail.com. Test of our tutorial. And we put the output here. Okay. Do you remember when I taught you about the data pinning? We can do it here. You don't want to call every time OpenAI because it cuts tokens. You pin here. I think it should be good. Let's run. Rerun it. It's successful. If we look at the output, it seems that we have sent the email. As we can see, no new run. It's exactly the data as before. And let's check that on my mailbox. So I checked my mailbox. This is what I received from my own address because this is the account that is linked to the credentials. What we could see is that we have this additional message that we probably don't want, and the format is not that beautiful. But I will show you how to solve that quickly. Let's go back in the workflow, okay? We unpin the data because we are not satisfied. Here, what we ask is keep the email brief and in HTML format. List of the fruits with their fat content in a nice table. Then it should be good. Here, we don't want the attribution. So you go on add option, append n8n attribution, and then you unselect it. And we'll relaunch. As you can see now, the AI agent is running because I have unpinned the data. The output is different. Now is an HTML format. So here we are with the final result. So we don't have the attribution. We have this additional HTML that we probably don't want, but it can be solved quite easily with some prompt engineering. And we have this beautiful table that we asked. So if I come back to the workflow, what did we learn? We learned how to interact with an API, how to filter data, how to edit data with basic addition and advance with expressions, how to use an if statement, how to limit the number of data, how to generate a JavaScript code node. And to be honest with you, for most of the advanced processing, you will need to do that. You will need this approach using Cloud Code, learning how to adapt the solution to what you're doing, how to use an AI agent with your credentials of OpenAI, and how to send an email. Now you have, I would say, 60 to 70% of the basis that you need to understand the workflows that I shared on my templates, on my creator profile or GitHub, and the one that we are going to look at now. So if you have any questions so far, and if you arrive at that stage, congratulations. don't hesitate to use the comment section. Now I will explain you more in details how to set up the workflow that I have presented initially. Now, back to this guy. And unlike the beginning of the video, now you understand what this workflow is doing. And you will tell me, but Samir, this is a very, very basic workflow. Yes, but it's the beginning of your n8n journey. And for most of the workflow, you have already the elements to understand what we are doing. The only difference probably here is going to be on that part where we are sending the data to the Google Sheet, but it's far from being complicated. As you have noticed here, I have pinned the data. You probably didn't notice at the beginning because you didn't know what was data pinning. Because in this mailbox, I receive many emails and I don't want to rely on the last email received. Here, I can test it for development purposes. So I will relaunch it to explain you what the workflow is doing. So the main difference here are this node that is sending data to the Google Sheet and this node, the structured output parser. But don't worry, it's not complicated. It's as easy as what we did before. So here, nothing changing. It's just now that instead of having a manual trigger, we have this email trigger. And what is interesting in this email trigger is that we have a lot of information about the emails. And what we take at the beginning is the subject using a if statement. If the subject contains inbound order, we proceed. If not, we don't do anything. What you will tell me probably in the comment section is that, yeah, but why not using a filter? Using a filter would have been better, but no one is perfect. Then this AI agent, same as before, here the user prompt is taking the subject and the body. Why? Because we have information in the subject and we have information in the body. And then in the system prompt, we are basically explaining the type of information that we want to extract from this email. So here I give precise examples and it will be extremely useful later. And here, this sentence, please put some attention on this sentence. Return your output strictly as a valid JSON object using the format below. And there is no format below, so that's an error here, but it's okay. Why? Because we are using the structured output parser. So the idea here is you want a specific format, you give to the agent an example of the format that you want. And this is exactly what we are doing here. We want to have a JSON format with the purchase order, the expected delivery date, and we want to have the lines formatted in a specific way. And that's exactly what we have in the output. This output is then used by this JavaScript code node that is doing a bit of mapping. So the idea here is for each order line, we add the purchase order number and the delivery date. So that way we have that as a transactional order lines format. For instance, to add that on a database or an ERP or WMS. How I have generated that? Claude, the same way that I explained you before. And then we push that to Google Sheet. And what we put in the Google Sheet, again, so we select the credentials. Here, I haven't explained that because we haven't used Google Sheets, but you have to select the Google Sheet in your Google Drive. And if you have set up the credentials the way I told you, you will have access to all the Google Sheets in your Google Drive. You need to create the Google Sheet with the right columns, and then the right columns will appear here. You select map each column manually. You drag and drop, the same way I explained you at the beginning of the video. And you're done, and you have the result that I have showed in the beginning of the video. So now you are ready to implement any workflow that I have shared on my GitHub repository. Let me show you what you can find. So at the beginning of the video, I told you your instance is probably empty, but don't worry, I will help you to fill it with templates workflows that you can play with. For that, you go on my GitHub, so github.com/Samir Saci. You will have the link in the description. You go on check my templates. I think I will share directly the link to the repo where you have the templates. You have, I think, 32, 33 templates here. We are covering multiple topics. So here it has been committed by my brother because I'm using his GitHub. He has GitHub Pro, but it's me. We have multiple categories: productivity, content creation, automation for more sustainable works like sustainability, logistics, supply chain, probably this is why you came here, and programming and DevOps. So here, you don't have to enter in the details at the beginning if you are a beginner. But I've created what we call an MCP server. So it's a way to connect Claude desktop to a tool. And here I've connected that to my instance. So Claude can automatically analyze the different execution and tell me what issues I have. Anyhow, probably here you are more interested in, for instance, logistic and supply chain automation. And here you have more than 10 workflows that are covering transportation management, CO2 emission calculation, EDI, translation parsing. For instance, this EDI workflow that I have used as a base for a solution that I have implemented for a customer. Here you have on the README a description of what the workflow is doing. If you click here, you have a complete tutorial on how to set up, the same way that I here. But in these tutorials, I have assumed that you have basics of n8n. This is why I needed this additional tutorial for you. And then you go on workflow.json and you copy and paste. So you can click here, I think, copy raw file. You go on person, like at home, you create workflow. You paste and it's ready. It's red because you need to put your credentials, but then it's ready to use. You have examples here, instructions. If you have any question, you can click here and it will take you to the YouTube channel. If you have any question, feel free to use the comment section. This is the beginning of your n8n journey. You have a lot of things to do. You will find a lot of videos in this channel. I will share the playlist in the description. More than 30 tutorials, but I also share some case study on how I use it. I connected n8n to some analytics products. So an agentic node can help users to analyze the outputs. So there are a lot of things to do if you want to play with that. And it's just the beginning. Then later, if you have any question on how to set up that for your later after you finished your trial, I can create a new video where I will share some insights on how to set up that on your VPS. See you for the next video.